Trapped miners who may or may not resurface, health workers infected while caring for patients with deadly diseases, journalists abducted by terrorist groups, explosion of oil rigs, nuclear accidents and factory building collapse. These are intense and heartbreaking stories that capture global attention, which periodically punctuate the news. The International Labour Organization puts the number of deaths arising from work-related accidents and diseases annually at about 2 million. With most organizations giving little or no regard to the safety of their employees, commentators say this certainly calls for concern. One which gives credence to the fact that a nation built on the dignity of labor must provide a safe working condition for its people, where no one should sacrifice their life for their livelihood. Our focus on Dateline 360 this week is x-raying this human right and how it can become a reality for workers everywhere. A warm welcome to you. I am Hauwa, Salihu, Adama. It's good to have you rejoin us on Dateline 360 as we examine health and safety issues at the workplace. Labour correspondent Emmanuel Anyimiro will lead the way, giving us a breakdown of the different jobs and hazards inherent in these areas. Wondering if decent job is still safe work when a worker is reported to die every 15 seconds from work-related accidents or disease.
The International Labour Organization has adopted over 40 standards specifically dealing with occupational safety and health, put together by ILO constituents, that is the government, employers and workers. These conventions are meant to promote occupational safety and good working conditions. Unfortunately, the reality is difficult as over 2 million workers die annually from work-related diseases and sicknesses across the globe.
Many hazards on the job are obvious while others are hidden. Safety hazards, for instance, include sharp objects, slippery floors, hot liquids, poor design tools, heavy lifting. Others are workplace violence like assault, threats, verbal abuse or robberies. Chemical hazards, on the other hand, can make you sick or have effects on you right away, either when you breathe, touch, depending on how toxic the chemical is. While biological hazards are found in wide variety of jobs, nurses and health workers can be exposed to HIV/AIDS virus, either through garbage collection, research or treatment.
With the alarming international statistics of one work-related death occurring every 15 seconds and 6,000 deaths every day, it is obvious that work kills more people across the globe than malaria, HIV and AIDS, wars, and other global parameters.
Safety is supposed to be seen as any other managerial issue to be managed corporately, and it begins with a safety policy, that is corporate safety policy, that will set the direction, that will set the strategy, that will also define roles and describe the environment, and everybody is carried along.
We don't have any data in Nigeria to tell us how many Nigerians are victims of unhealthy workplaces in a year. Statistically, we are told that construction sector is the worst hit. If you look around Abuja and look around where they are building towers, you find out that sometimes they don't keep to all the safety gadgets. People climb to the 20th floor, to 15th floor without safety belts. You see them.
When it comes to the use of PPE, the employer is to provide it and the workers is to wear it. So where the workers are not wearing the provided personal protective equipment, then the workers are liable. And the workers are also not to misuse the personal protective equipment provided.
The International Labour Organization, ILO, over the years instituted conventions such as Safety and Health Mine Convention number 176, Radiation Protection Convention number 115, Occupational Cancer Convention 137, Air Pollution, Noise and Vibration 148, Chemical Convention 170. Yet, hazards are still evidence. So, what is the place of safety in labor?
The issue of health and safety goes beyond adopting a convention. The Convention 155, which talked about occupational health and safety in the workplace, generally, without mentioning specific sectors, has been adopted by Nigeria many years ago, but the problem is to domesticate it. It was after this adoption, around towards the end of 90s, that gave rise to the occupational health and safety policy that is very obsolete that we had.
Nigeria, we are signatory to most of the UN convention. And when you look at most of these conventions, the policy are so clear and comprehensive. What we only lack in Nigeria is implementation.
The Federal Fire Service is saddled with the responsibility of fighting fire wherever it occurs.
If you're talking of hazardous materials, in most cases, they are the most dangerous because in some industries, except in-house trained fire wardens know exactly what they are using therein. Whereas the public firefighters, they might get to this point, and then of course there are various hazardous materials they may not be acquainted with. So those are the challenges.
Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund is in charge of providing social security.
Increased productivity drives every professional calling. To boost productivity and profitability, however, hazards are expected to be minimized or prevented because they serve as negative catalysts for declining productivity. When hazards become overwhelming for managers of organizations, experts believe it is time for a rethink. For Dateline 360, Emmanuel Ayebiro.
Decline in productivity indeed, Emmanuel. With 2 million workers said to die annually, there certainly is cause for worry. And closely related to that report is what Rabi Abdullah has been seeking answers to. How much attention is given to the health and safety of Nigerian health workers in view of the WHO directive for the strengthening of political momentum for primary prevention and management of risk for occupational and work-related disease and injuries? Rabi?
All workers are entitled to work in an environment where risks to their health and safety are properly controlled. The golden rule is that no one must lose his life or come to any form of harm in the course of his livelihood, as it is the responsibility of a nation built on the dignity of our work to provide a good and safe working condition for its people. Now, let's go into the medical world and see what obtains. Welcome to the National Blood Transfusion Service, Abuja. From needle pricks that could lead to deadly infections and other consequences, workers here, like every other healthcare worker, face their own share of the wide range of hazards on the job.
And what we do is to collect blood from those who are willing to give it and give it to those who need it. Usually the process involves what we call venipuncture, and it involves using a needle to puncture the vein of the prospective donor. In that regards, and during the process, you could have what they call needle stick injury.
Very important infections are hepatitis B and C on one hand, and then HIV. In the case of HIV, what we do, we have a program that we call post-exposure prophylaxis. In the 72 hours of the pinprick, we give the patient, we start the health worker a combination of 3 drugs, just like we treat people who have HIV, and we do it for about 4 weeks.
As ailments vary, so do modes of diagnosis and treatment. Take, for instance, this histopathology laboratory located in one of the centers of excellence in the nation's health sector. The story of the medical lab scientists working here should interest you.
every chemical here is carcinogenic. We inhale them every day on small dosage. But there was a time, one of the keg that they used to bring the formalin, Conk 1, got busted. I don't know, it spilled, and I had to get mop and try to mop it. That day, I actually don't know how it was. I nearly collapsed. All my airways, there was irritation. I was feeling pain down to my tummy. And that level can kill, it can cause anything. For instance, if I was pregnant and I inhaled that kind of a thing, the fetus in the womb of uterus will be deformed because it has teratogenic effects. Other countries too, for you to do this kind of a thing, you must have extractor fans, there must be film cupboard, because they know the effects on the system.
Of that you don't have.
We don't.
And a thorough analysis about boldness be correlated with the work that is done in histopathology lab. Because I have noticed that virtually all the men who have been working for a long time in this department usually get bored along the line.
What we do is to also observe the universal precautions, wearing of the lab gloves, and wearing also of the face mask as necessary.
We put this mask on because of some of the vapors from the chemicals that we work with in the lab. It's just a medium to protect us, but it doesn't solve the problem of what we inhale, because it doesn't stop the vapor from entering our nostrils.
At the mention of the diagnosis and treatment of cancer, radiology and other nuclear medicine procedures readily come to mind. How protected are experts in this area from exposure, from radiation, or critical hazard of this field of medicine, you might ask?
The radiation that comes out from the patient is not coming out from the equipment. So what we do is during the imaging procedure, the patient, as the patient comes into the imaging room, the patient emits radiation because the patient has either swallowed or has been injected with a nuclear material. So one of the things is, if we place the patient on the what we call the gamma camera, the health worker usually keeps a safe distance from that patient. And that's why you could see that station there is called the image acquisition station. While the patient is lying on this table, the medical worker who is responsible for acquiring this image stands a longer distance. Protective mechanism that we use is also called the shielding. It's what we call a lead jacket. You can just put it so that it can protect you against the harmful effect of radiation. Right, personal dosimetry is a small piece of equipment, and what this equipment does is that it accumulate the radiation exposure that the health worker is exposed to. So every month we then calculate how much dose that this person received within a period of time. And there is a standard, international standard, for the acceptable radiation dose that every health worker, including a pregnant health worker, is exposed to.
In the face of all the hazards, 5,000 naira is what Nigerian medical workers receive monthly as hazard allowance. Although there isn't a data in place in respect of morbidity and mortality arising from work-related diseases and injuries among health workers in the country, the number of infections and deaths among the medical personnel that attended to the Liberian Patrick Sawyer, who imported the Ebola virus disease into Nigeria, is a clear reference.
Comment at the National Blood Transfusion Service wouldn't have been complete without me doing the needful, talking about voluntary blood donation. I have just donated blood to save a life. Hauwa, what about you? For Dateline 360, this is Rabi Abdullah.
Commendable, Rabi, I'd say. But I suppose looking at the bigger picture should be putting in place and implementing measures to protect the lives of those who actually save lives, i.e. health workers. Now, reading through the pages of newspapers, listening to radio and watching the television makes a good day for the receiver and often taken for granted. Welcome to the world of this group of people through the lens of Ruben Okala.
Hauwa is a truism that the pen is mightier than the sword. But unfortunately, as the pen is mightier than the sword, so is the level of risk and hazards associated with members of the fourth estate of the realm as they perform their social responsibilities. For several years, the media in Nigeria has been inundated by various threats, either closure of media houses, threat of withdrawal of broadcast licenses, arrest of journalists, and general impunity by various governments, specifically the military, which considered such strategy as instrument of keeping the press in check.
We realized that quite a number of journalists were killed, some were assaulted in the course of discharging their social responsibility. But unfortunately, the security agencies were yet to arrest and punish and prosecute those who are responsible for this crime. So we want the government to be more serious, to be more proactive in ensuring that whoever commits a crime against journalists must be prosecuted.
Every organization that employs journalists is supposed to provide an insurance for such a journalist. So at those two levels, if the employer has insurance for that, the journalist, and the journalist himself has subscribed to that one under the umbrella of NUJ, it becomes a double guarantee in instances.
Apart from the external threat to this noble profession, experts say almost every practitioner is faced with the issue of safety occasioned by the equipment they use in the course of duty.
As a matter of fact, we are more concerned about that. And in most of our meetings, we have been raising this issue as part of agitation for increase in salaries of the workers in the media sector. You recall that when we talk about the transmitters, the radiation, and some other things that affect our members, I think in one of the stations, I think it killed one of our members of recent. And we are not happy about all those things. And as I said earlier, those are the reasons why we said the media should be given a separate salary structure.
Globally, media practitioners are exposed to various forms of danger. For instance, Christiana Amampo of the CNN and even back home in Nigeria, correspondents covering several beats are faced with one form of danger or the other. Here is Mohammed Abdulkadir, a defense correspondent who has been covering the war zone of the Northeast. We're talking about the risk and hazard of this job. I'm sure you have loads of experiences to share.
Lots of experience to share. While we were in Goza, while we were there for about 3 hours with our troops, suddenly an announcement was made that there was a threat. We had to quickly dispatch and boarded our flight to be able to get out of the threat, because it can come anytime from anywhere. In a low-intensity conflict, such as the fight against Boko Haram, anything could happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere. So journalists is liable as the military carrying the guns.
Close ship to death experience you have.
Yeah.
Will you choose this profession again?
In fact, I will choose it many times over, because it's a job we have signed on to either get out of it alive or otherwise. You have to be courageous. You have to be combatantly ready to go into the front line area and be able to do your bit. In fact, there's what we call job fulfillment. Despite the fact that we are not insured, but you still have that commitment, you have that determination to want to go out there and deliver on your mandate. Don't forget that the fact that wars or battles are fought on air, land, and in the media. While the locals are running away from battlefronts, the journalists must go in there and report and get the story out of the difficult situation. So it's like we have been militarized, so to say, as defense correspondents. Yeah, we are set.
As I face the camera and with this radiating mast behind me, to my presenter, Hauwa, in those intense lights in the studio, all in the bid to give you the viewers the best. How do you feel me?
The lights. Sure, Ruben, that's what we have signed up to do. However, it could be made comfortable or safer. Okay, talking about making the workplace more accommodating. Nigeria is in a global league where structures exist to take care of incidences that may arise from work. The Employees' Compensation Scheme signed into law in 2010. Our in-house labor experts, Emmanuel Anyimero, again gives us a status report.
Beyond safety measures put in place by employers to guarantee good health at work, the Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund, which has the mandate to provide social security and protections to all Nigerians, has commenced the implementation of the Employees' Compensation Scheme, where workers who sustained injuries or permanent deformities during the course of their duties are no longer left on their own fate.
The Employees' Compensation Act of 2010 mandates employers to contribute 1% of payroll to the NSITF so that employees are adequately compensated in case of incapacitation by accident at the workplace. So far, the NSITF has about 25,000 employers registered under the scheme.
The scheme has a beautiful aspect to it, whereby if somebody dies on the job or as a result of the work of the job and so on, we pay his spouse 90% of his earnings for life. And then we take care of 4 children until they reach tertiary institution. So this we do as soon as we receive the necessary papers. As of today, we have over 50 such widows who are receiving from us. And the figure is growing. It comes from it, and we pay promptly.
Under the NSITF and the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA-SAVE Workplace Intervention Project, workers are expected to be sensitized on benefits of the scheme, plus incentives to employers who are complying with nationally drawn occupational safety and health standards.
The whole essence of it is for us to identify employers and enterprises who are not really up to it in terms of infrastructure and prepare to limit accidents in the workplace and ensure that they meet with the minimum standard.
Experts believe there is no amount of compensation that can remove disability. However, when social security policies are well implemented, it can help to reduce vulnerability or poverty workers face in life after retirement. For Dateline 360, I am Emmanuel Anyimero.
Very true, Emmanuel. Life after retirement, some veterans say, could be lonely. Making it more bearable for victims of accidents definitely would go a long way. A good example is how veteran soldiers are treated in the United States. Globally, the law requires that employers provide their employees with working conditions that are free of known dangers. Although there is a consensus that not all accidents can be prevented, experts are of the view that it is important for stakeholders to embrace proactive measures to ensure that they are reduced to the barest minimum. Has the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund justified its statutory mandate? Is the Nigerian culture of prevention of occupational safety standard? Should workplace safety be complicated or rocket science? Good governance on occupational safety and health records shows that prevention pays. We appreciate your comments, questions, and suggestions. Our platform, Dateline 360 at nta.ng, and Twitter handle at NTA News Now are still available for your contributions. Many thanks and bye.